I'm Joe Neal, and I wanted to share with you a few thoughts about the Buffalo National River and how we're all involved in it, and the origins of this particular series of photographs was when there was a controversy going on about a hog farm in the Buffalo River watershed, and the feeling that there are some people that are in the buffalo and some people aren't. And I really feel like we're all in the buffalo in one way or another. And so I just wanted to share pictures about that. And that's what this program is really about. So, so a young child there, and that's in Lost Valley. She's in the buffalo. And I'm probably down here in the water somewhere, hoping I don't lose my camera. But just to get the flow of the river, because it's fun to be down there, especially in the summertime. And this is my daughter. She's, if you start on the left, she's the second one. She's got the purple bathing suit. She and her friends love to go to the Buffalo River, and this, I think, particular trip was a birthday trip for somebody. And you go hiking, and all of our hearts and our minds are really expanded with views like this. We get a sense of the earth that we live on and that we all share. And I think there's some canoes down there in the bottom, which might have been why I took that photograph. But this is all in the upper Buffalo. This is probably Steel Creek. And we go there on field trips to look at birds because there's a great bird community. And the sitting person in the middle is Doug James, who was the president of our society at that time. And he was one of the people that fought to protect the Buffalo River from dams and then fought for the national park. So it was always a pleasure to go out in the field with Doug. He was in the Buffalo. Good swimming hole at the Ponca Low Water Bridge. There's Ariel again and one of her friends from high school. Lots of wonderful landscapes and lots of things to explore in here. A non poisonous snake hangs over the branches, but everybody's ever canoed on the Buffalo very often has probably jumped out of the boat a time or two when they went under branches that had these snakes. But of course, these snakes they're actually non-poisonous snakes. And I think there's some fish in there somewhere. I can't see them too well right now, but it's fun to look off Ponca Low Water Bridge. Yeah, I can see them now. It's fun to look off Ponca Low Water Bridge at the creatures that are in this very clear water. They're in the Buffalo too, of course. And my artist friend Richard Stoffaker, we were out hiking. And look at these very cool plants. I love this one. This is called Jack in the Pulpit. And I grew up as a Southern Baptist, and I'm very familiar with ministers standing up in the pulpit. So I've always really enjoyed the kind of the humor in the name of this plant. And these just breathtaking landscapes on the Buffalo, and more unbelievable waterfalls everywhere. And look at this gorgeous trillium. I mean, this is perfection, right? This is the earth having perfected something that really works. And there's an interesting historical narrative about the Buffalo Valley. Ken Smith wrote a book about this, and he wrote a section in it. It's called Buffalo River Country, about the Boxley Baptist Church. And there's this the older church on the right, as you can see, down in this valley with these rising hills around it. Pretty amazing. And that's Cave Mountain. I've done a breeding bird survey on the buffalo for years. It goes up over this mountain. That's kind of what it looks like when you get up toward the top. And that's an early June morning on Cave Mountain Road. And there's a barred owl that was just getting out of bed when we went by there. And a friend of mine, Mike Molodnoff, was doing research down in there during the Arkansas Breeding Bird Atlas. And interesting birds like this red-bellied woodpecker and bald eagles nest along the river. They're in the buffalo. And Arkansas Game and Fish attempted to restore trumpeter swan populations. They attempted to include the Buffalo Valley, especially the Boxley Mill Pond, with trumpeter swans. And this particular introduction didn't work, but the program itself has been very successful in restoring trumpeters, and it probably included some of the birds that were originally released at the Boxley Mill Pond. So these are birds soon after the release. And they did nest over there. And guess who else who lives at the Boxley Mill Pond? Who else is in the buffalo? Well, these are beavers, of course. And those ponds are really great for wood ducks. They're part of the buffalo. And eastern wild turkeys. And look at that. A scarlet tanager. It just looks unreal, doesn't it? Yet very much part of the buffalo landscape. And a wood thrush. Indigo bunting. Black and white warblers. Anybody know what this is? It's called witch hazel. And it grows in the river bottoms, all over the buffalo in the river bottoms. And when the flowers are open like this, the fragrance are just, well, it'll knock your socks off. And this is maybe one of the first wildflowers that you see in the spring in the buffalo and other places in the Ozarks. It's called salt and pepper. And they're all kinds of interesting flowers. If you look carefully, you see a little pollinator in there. Can you see it? It's right up there. Oh, I don't know if you can see my finger, but at any rate. Oh, look at that! Bloodroot! And here is a pollinator going to a white trout lily, and that's early in the spring in Lost Valley. And that's a yellow trout lily. And there's a rare plant that grows along the buffalo in a few places, including Lost Valley. It's called Trillium pusilium variety ozarcanum. Ozark trout lily. Gorgeous little flower. And it's a pretty unique thing to our region. And this is spice bush. And the hickory trees are they're just breaking buds. Oh, wow. Wood betony. Anyway, the wildflowers have, I think that the very first people that came into that area, one of the things they had to have loved about being in the buffalo was that there was this changing, ever-changing pageant of life. And you just keep looking. There's just more and more of it. The more you look, the more you see. And one of my personal favorites, when I was a kid, my grandmother in Fort Smith had bushes outside her house that she called snowballs. And they are actually the garden variety of this plant. So this is the hydrangea, and they're common in the cool especially north facing areas along the Buffalo. And spotted jewelweed. Look at that. Native honeysuckle. And do you know what this is? Well, this is a plant that I don't manage to get out there every year and see it, but I sure need to get it on my calendar. These are wild azaleas or mountain azaleas. How about that? I mean, these are just, it's crazy how beautiful they are out in the woods. How lucky we are that we managed to save and protect it. And pawpaws. And there are the fruits. I've heard them called Arkansas bananas. They are actually pretty good. And maybe a couple decades ago, Arkansas Game and Fish reintroduced elk into the Buffalo Valley, and I think that they've done okay there. They're different than the original elk that were there, but they seem to be making it okay. And how about umbrella magnolia or umbrella tree? Oh, and there's my timber rattlesnake friend. Oh, look at this. Okay, this is a picture of what you can see if you stand on the Ponca Low Water Bridge when the water level is pretty low. And these are called hogsuckers, northern hogsuckers. And they are an indication of very clean water. They do not live they don't make it in polluted water. And you can see them how well they mix, but the light's got to be just right to see them. And they're salamanders. I've got a couple of friends that are real salamander people, and they're salamanders in the buffalo, and they really go looking for them. And all kinds of interesting insects. And Lisa Marshall studied Louisiana water thrush in several places around northwest Arkansas, including the Buffalo. And that was her PhD project, and she's now teaching in Louisiana, I think. But she studied how water thrushes use the water and how they respond to pollution. It was a very, very fine study. And there's Louisiana water thrush. Another one. And this is Ken Smith, who's written several books, including the very popular guidebook that a lot of people use for hiking in the Buffalo. But he wrote a couple, his Buffalo River Country book with big, gorgeous photographs he took it's a really treat to read it. And I think this was at the 100th anniversary of Neal Compton's birth. And he and Neal Compton were close friends when the Buffalo River, the Ozark Society, was organized to save the Buffalo River. And this is Granny Henderson's cabin down by the Buffalo. And lichens. And look at that. You could spend all day just figuring out what all this was about. All the different rocks, all the different sediments that went into making these rocks, and all the time it took to make this. And I thank you for coming to the Buffalo River with me.